Hi, and welcome to today's discussion on risk-taking and entrepreneurial decision-making. Today we're going to take a look at risk as related to entrepreneurship. What is it that motivates risk-taking by entrepreneurs? And we'll also work to dispel some of the myths of entrepreneurship and risk-taking. In that, we'll look at why entrepreneurs engage in risk, and we'll look at a couple of case studies in that area. We'll also discuss some key ways that entrepreneurs can be more effective in their risk assessment and thereby improve their decision making. So a central question that I'd like to start with is, why is it that people believe entrepreneurs just simply take more risk? And do entrepreneurs really show any higher natural tendencies of taking risk versus others that are working within corporate government and more established settings? And the answer to, do entrepreneurs take more risk in a natural inclination, is no. And there is increasing research in the area that points that entrepreneurs do not, by definition, have any naturally higher tendency to take risk. But instead, it's perception, and it's the perception of risk that differ. And that there are other motivations in play that motivate entrepreneurs to start and launch new ventures. And one example of such a risk taker is a gentleman named Elon Musk. He made his first fortune in PayPal. And when you look at money as a motivator for entrepreneurship, if that were a motivator and you were able to walk away from PayPal with several $100 million after founding the company that was subsequently acquired by eBay after they went public, you could say, well, I've made my hundreds of millions of dollars and now I can go on vacation and that I don't need to take any more risk and I don't need to take any financial risk either. Elon Musk has done the opposite. He has essentially spent all of his PayPal income. He, according to the New York Times in this 2010 article, declares himself as broke. And you may ask, well, what is it that a centimillionaire does to find his way into being broke? And in this scenario, he started multiple other high-risk startups. One of those is a company called Tesla. And when we look at Tesla, one of the vehicles is pictured behind him here, and this is their factory. I believe this one is the one in Fremont, California. And they are an emerging electric car company in the U.S. Not hybrid, but purely electric, and that these are 100% battery-powered vehicles. And it's helpful to see, well, what does this vehicle look like? Is it small? Is it compact? Is it unattractive? Is it something that is undesirable? And for this vehicle, you could argue, well, it's quite the opposite. It's a very exotic looking vehicle in their initial introduction in the U.S. market. The Roadster, you can see on the lower left-hand side that the performance is among the fastest production vehicles in the world. And the orientation of the Roadster is that it is essentially a substitute or a direct competitor to the Porsches, the Ferraris, the Lamborghinis, the Lotuses, and the other high-end vehicles in the market. And it was priced accordingly at a price point of over $100,000. So this was their starting point. This was something that was positioned as a niche product, serving a niche customer, and they have since gravitated downstream into serving subsequent markets, and specifically within their Model S, which is a recent Motor Trend Car of the Year. This is a four-door sedan, so it has the look and the size of scale that other full-size vehicles would have. And the orientation to this is they recognize that there is a small market to high-end exotic two-door $100,000 plus vehicles, and they are entering the passenger car market, and they are entering, as you may expect, the SUV market that's expected to come to market next year. So they have built themselves, independent of being associated with any existing car company, into being their own startup car company. In combination with personal investment from Elon Musk and with subsequent venture investment. The company was able to go public, and they're now are working to grow and scale into these new arenas. So not only is Elon Musk a risk taker and starting an automotive company, in parallel, he's starting a space company, meaning that he is physically building and flying rockets into space with clients such as NASA to deploy and maintain satellites and things of that nature. So two very high-risk initiatives. To do one independently, but to do both in parallel, I believe, is somewhat unprecedented when you look at entrepreneurial ventures. But this is the type of risk that an Elon Musk is taking because he, one, is very interested in the environment, is very motivated by space travel. And so for him, there are these multiple external factors that are in play other than just risk for risk's sake that makes him very interested and excited about being involved in these types of ventures. And as an inventor and as a scientist, he's very attracted to these types of ventures. So when you look at, well, what would motivate a millionaire to invest all of his money and all of his time in these types of ventures, and what are the risks that he's taking inherent within that? One is certainly understanding how he may process information and how he and others may make decisions, and what role do cognitive complexity and risk propensity take within that. So in essence, what we see here is that as you look at more complex tasks, and what we mean again by cognitive is these thinking elements. So as you look at tasks that require more thinking and require more analysis, there has to be some level of elevated risk that's being made therein, and they're working to examine that and working to try and process that more effectively. And when we look at strategic decisions, we don't know the outcomes. It's even difficult to apply probabilities to these outcomes. But what we do know is that we want to do more research, we want to have more expertise, and we want to make as good decisions as we can. And our ability as entrepreneurs to evaluate risk, to assess risk, and to mitigate or lower these levels of uncertainty is certainly central to making good decisions. And why is it that we engage in risk in the first place? Well, one is that we may, again, not have all of the necessary information. We may also need to integrate some insider's view on the perspective. We may need to in some way dissect and understand what happened in the past, but recognize that the past is the past and that we want to move forward beyond that, and that we are optimists. We've talked previously about being overconfident, but in this scenario, we want to, again, we expect a favorable outcome, and so that certainly motivates our level of risk-taking as well. Key influencing factors that help us decide what risks are worth it and what risks aren't worth it are very much to the individual. How high are the risks? Alternatively, how high are the rewards? And we would expect these to move somewhat in concert with one another. There's a question of consequence of, well, what happens if the desired outcome isn't the real outcome? What do we do then? And we want to think about to what extent were the complex elements, the hard decisions, factored into the process. And there are a number of elements that come into play when we go through when we think about these relative risk-reward scenarios. What we mean by industry dynamism is essentially what is it that is within the industry that is forcing change. If we are entering industries such as the electric vehicle industry or the space industry, and again, some of us may, I expect the majority of us aren't, those are very complex, very high risk. The upside, the reward side is almost unfathomable if you can go in and have success in such a venture as a startup. Alternatively, the downside is very significant, so we may find that many of us aren't quite facing that level of complexity. But for the types of ventures that we are examining, we want to be sure that we do the research, that we talk with prospective customers, that we have a good understanding of the forces in play in that industry, and not only where is the industry now, but where is it going, and how to position ourselves effectively for that. What we also see is entrepreneurs have the ability to go through and take things from multiple perspectives. So think about what is it that you as the entrepreneur see as the pros and cons of the venture. Step out of that and look at a customer perspective. If you are a customer of your product or service, what are your motivations? What are your concerns? What are your apprehensions? Also look at it from a partner perspective. Also look at it from an investor perspective. So in that way, look at the opportunity from multiple views. As you begin to look at it broadly, you can begin to integrate some of these themes and integrate these perspectives and make sure that the problem, the solution, the design of the company aligns with that and takes in those mitigating factors. Also, what you can do is take a look at the cognitive framework involved. And what I mean by that is involve other people in this process. Also tie some data to your research. Don't just have it a list of personal assumptions and personal views, but see if you can find some market research, some industry research, articles, magazines, journals, whatever it is that you have access to that can help you go through and try and find some evidence that the problem that you think is in the market is indeed a real problem. And this should give you a broader and deeper view of the decision at hand. So in summary, we want to recognize that it's not so much entrepreneurs that are naturally risk-taking, but that their tendencies may really be viewed by what their perceptions are, what they see as risk, what are their passions, what are the risk and reward of the different scenarios they may be faced with entrepreneurially, and that we engage in risk for a variety of reasons. And those variety are as broad as the number of people that are considering entrepreneurship, and each of those are unique to the person. And that it's important for entrepreneurs, and perhaps you all as aspiring entrepreneurs, to thoughtfully assess risk, to put some market research into your decision making, to go through and work a little bit on the financials. So these are all the types of things that we'll do later in the course to help you better identify and evaluate entrepreneurial opportunities. Thank you.